Hello, it's Tash here and welcome to episode 11 of How to Renovate. In this episode, let's get saving. This week, I'm sharing 5 ways you can save money on your renovation. Okay, so having worked with renovators over the years, budget is always very close to the top of the worry list. And having carried out so many of my own renovations as well, I can totally understand why. Most people are borrowing money for their renovation project, and it's extremely expensive to renovate, even more so now than ever before. And I'm sure that you've heard of both materials and the labour costs are at an all-time high. And I think this is especially true if you live in a big city like I do here in London. I really do get it. You want to make sure that your money is spent well and that you end up with a home that's, you absolutely love and that works for you and your family. So I really do understand the budget worries. So let's get on with it. Here are 5 ways that you can save money on your home renovation. In our 5-pillar process, the information in this episode falls under pillar 2, preparation. As you know by now, if you've been following, everything I teach about renovations falls under my 5-pillar process, and you can find some more information about it at the end of this episode. Okay, let's get started. Number 1 is to plan thoroughly and know the correct sequence of a renovation. So if you've been following the series up till now, you know I'm all about the planning. I'm always banging on about it. But if you plan well, you will save money. It's as simple as that. Before you start, knowing the renovation sequence, as well as your own renovation goals, your layout, your budget, your time scale that you have in mind, your finish spec, knowing all of these things up front will put in a position to save on both builders and professional fees, as it will have a clear brief from you and they will have a clear path to follow, which really does and will reduce time wastage greatly. Planning and knowing the sequence will also put you in a very strong position of knowing which professionals you need to hire and in which order for your project. And professionals like architects, structural engineers and designers, they can charge anywhere between £60 to £150 an hour. So just imagine how much money you can save if you plan well and you know which professionals you're going to need for your project. You can then streamline who you need and also the hours that they spend on your project. And it just really puts you in a really good position to save quite a lot of money. Also, never assume that someone else is in charge of the planning. I keep talking about planning your project, but never assume that someone else is in charge of the planning. It's very easy to make this mistake. I've made it before, and I know so many people who have. You'll get to a stage in the project, you've hired an architect, you've hired a designer, you've hired a contractor, everyone's sending out all sorts of drawings and schedules, and there's this air that everything's under control and things are being done and emails are flying about with this, that and the other. And you might think, oh, well, things are being done and so this must all be under control. But I cannot recommend enough that you get involved yourself and know the sequence, know the process, because if you fail to plan, mistakes will show up, and in the construction phase, which is the most expensive phase for mistakes to show up in. So even when things are flying around and looks like everything's in control, make sure that you know the process. Make sure that you know that things are actually in control and that you know the sequence of what should be happening. Because I've been in the situation so many times before where a client thinks because the architect's sending stuff out that the builder's reading everything and doing it all on site. And they might not be. They might have missed the email. They might not have looked at the most recent drawings. So always make sure that you know you're in charge. It's your project, that you know what is going on when, so that you can be in control of your budget. Okay, moving on to number 2, and this is keep checking your budget health as you go along. This is a really important one, especially if your budget is tight and you really need to try and stick to it as closely as possible. And I think having a regular time in your calendar to kind of check where you're at with a budget can actually save you money. For example, let's say you've had some unexpected surprises come up in your bill, something that's going to cost you some extra money. If you act quickly and you're checking your budget regularly, you can mitigate those. Perhaps not completely, but you can certainly reduce it. If you act quickly, you can look at other parts of the budget. You can make some adjustments. You can see where maybe you could save a bit. You could put a bit less money to one thing or another, and kind of doing this constantly throughout your project is kind of a game of just moving things around, and it really can potentially save you a lot of money, or at least keep you on track for your budget, or as close to it as possible, if you do this throughout your project. So it will really keep you on track and minimize your overspend. So get those regular budget checks in the diary. Okay, moving on to number 3. Okay, let's now get into some more practical ways that you can save on your project and on sites. Number 3 is one of my top tips if your budget is tight, and this one is to flat pack your kitchen cabinets. So yes, hand-built bespoke kitchens, they are stunning, they are beautiful, but the price is stunning too. So, I mean, you can save thousands on your project by going flat pack. I've used flat pack kitchens in all of my own personal renovations, and with a little creativity you can really make it look bespoke. You can upgrade the doors, the handles. I always go for good worktops. That really elevates a kitchen design. You know, you can get to a point where no one even will know it's flat pack, because the flat pack parts are all interior, they're all hidden, and generally come with lots of different dividers and function really well. So, you know, the flat pack ranges are improving all the time to be able to do this. They're now doing filler panels, you can get special inserts, so you can really get the look and the functionality very similar to a bespoke kitchen. But like I said, and although I always look to save money on the cabinets, I do think that the worktops are where you should spend some money. That's really the surface you see all the time. There's a lot of it. You touch it, you feel it. So a good worktop will elevate your kitchen. But on the cabinets, I would say if you want to save, go for flat pack. Okay, so moving on to number 4, we are talking about keep most of the plumbing where it is. So this is a really good tip if you can do it. So if you're carrying out a kind of a major renovation where lots of things are being knocked around, rooms are being moved about, it might not be possible. But if your project allows for it, I would say this is a big way you can save, because plumbing is expensive. Running all the pipes is expensive. So, you know, if it's possible, keep the plumbing where it is. It doesn't mean you can't change anything at all, but you have to keep everything exactly where it was before. If you keep the kitchen in the general area that it was before, or the bathrooms in the general area that they were before, it doesn't mean you can't put the sink in a slightly different place or the shower in a slightly different place. It just means that you will save so much money on moving that than if you were to move that bathroom to a completely different location in the house where there was no plumbing before. So keep that in mind at design stage, because that can save you lots of money on both materials and labour. Okay, so we're on to number 5, our last way to save money, and this is a really important one actually. So this is keep changes during the construction phase to an absolute minimum. And shall I say it again? The planning. So if you plan at the start, you know, you won't have to make many changes through the construction phase, because you would have thought about most of your decisions up front, and you kind of know what you want, you know the sizes of the rooms you want, you know your layout, and so it just makes the whole process going forward from that so much smoother. And if you plan well at the start and you scrutinize your layouts over and over again, and you make sure that they will work for you and your family, and you ask lots and lots of questions at the quote stage, and if you know the correct sequence of the build project, like when the electricians and the plumbers come in for the first and second fixes, and you can nail down your layout plans and your project planning, really you won't have to make that many changes. Of course there will be some changes. I've never worked on a project where there haven't been any changes, but if you've planned well, the changes that you will have to make are most likely going to be small changes. And if there's any additional costs, they'll be probably minimal. And therefore, you will really save a lot of money by not making major changes throughout your project. And like I've said before, making big changes during the construction phase is the most expensive time to make changes. Because if any rework is needed, in other words, they need to rip something out and start again, your builder's going to charge you for that. There might be extra materials. If there's a really major change, like opening up a wall that wasn't supposed to be opened up before, that would involve structural changes, which would involve steel beams going into the ceiling, which means extra cost for the steel, extra cost for the structural engineer to do the calculations on the size that steel should be, possibly extra cost for the architect as well. So really plan ahead and keep in mind that any major changes that you make throughout your build will really cost you dearly. So I think do keep that in mind. Really focus on your planning from the start. Just plan and learn the reno process from the start, and you will save money. I think that brings us to the end, my friends. The end of episode 11. And I think there's a bit of tough love in that one. Sorry about that, but you really will benefit from planning up front. And now you know these 5 ways you can save money. It's always good to know all this information before you start. You can work it into your plans, you can have the knowledge and know what to expect and not be so surprised when things happen, because they will happen. I really hope you enjoyed the episode, and I'll see you next week for the next one. Bye everyone. For more information on my 5-pillar process for successful renovation, you can go directly to southplacestudio.com/pillars, where you'll find an introduction to the process and what each pillar covers.